In this video, we are going to walk through a coding solution to the classic calculate average processing duration per machine SQL technical interview question. So let's jump in. So in this question, we are given a machine logs table, which is a table with 4 columns. We have the machine ID, which is an integer, the process ID, which is an integer, an event type, which is an enum, and event timestamp, which is a float. So if we look here, we can see the machine ID, process ID, and event type is the primary key. So it's the combination of those that makes each row unique. The machine ID is the ID of the machine. The process ID is the ID of the process running on the machine with the ID machine ID. The event type is an enum of type either begin or complete. An event timestamp is a float representing the time in seconds. And so begin indicates that the machine starts the process at the given timestamp, and complete indicates that the machine ends the process at the given timestamp. And so the begin timestamp is always before the complete timestamp for every machine ID and process ID pair. And each machine ID process ID pair is guaranteed to have both a begin and complete timestamp. So our job is to write a solution to calculate the average time each machine takes to complete a process. The time to complete a process is the complete timestamp minus the begin timestamp, and the average time is computed by dividing the total time to compute all processes on a machine by the number of processes run on that machine. And so the result table should include the machine ID and the average time as average processing duration rounded to 3 decimal places, and we can return the result in any order. So as always, I think the best way to understand it is to simply walk through an example. So in this example, we have the machine logs table and we have a set of machines and processes. So if we look at the machine IDs, we can see here we have 3 machine IDs, 1, 2, and 3. And so if we look at 1, there are 4 rows with this, and there are 2 processes. So process 1 and process 2 for this machine. And so each one, as we saw, is begin, complete, begin, complete. So if we want to calculate the average, we simply look at the 2 processes. So we can see it completed at 2.3 and started at 1.2. So we can simply subtract those. And then we can do the same for the process 2 on that machine 1, which is 4.2 minus 3.5. And then, as you can see here, what we can do is machine 1. So 2.3 minus 1.2 plus 4.2 minus 3.5. Add those up and divide by 2 as there are 2 processes, and we get 0.9. So in our output table, we'll have machine ID of 1 and an average processing duration of 0.9. So pretty straightforward, and we simply repeat that process for the 2 other machines. So as we can see, we also have machine ID of 2. It similarly had 2 processes, process with an ID of 1 and process with an ID of 2. Again, begin, complete, so it's the exact same. So we take 2.1 from 0.8 and 3.3 from 2.4. And so if we go down to machine 2's average, again, do our subtraction, add them up, and then divide by 2 as there are 2 processes, and that gives us an average duration of 1.1, and then we can include that in our output like so. And then finally, we also have machine ID of 3, and similarly, it also had 2 processes, and we follow that exact same process. So it's going to be 5.6 minus 5, 7.9 minus 6.1. And then if we go down to the average calculation, that gives us an average duration of 1.2, and we've included it in the output like so. So I think conceptually, it's very easy to understand, but to actually implement the solution requires you to be pretty familiar with SQL keywords as well as joins. So I've left a link to a video I created on SQL joins in the description below. And if you want to try out the question yourself before seeing the solution, pause the video and head over to techprep.app. The link is in the description. So in the first line here, we are selecting the machine ID from the M1 aliased machine logs table, and we will see that alias coming up shortly. Next, what we are doing is for every job, we are subtracting the begin time from the complete time to get its duration. We are then taking the average duration per machine, casting it to a numeric, and rounding it to 3 decimal places, and then labeling the result as average processing duration. So you can see here we are rounding it to 3 decimal places. We are then subtracting the complete from the start. As you can see, we've got 2 aliases, M2 and M1, and we'll see that shortly, referencing the same table. We're then getting the average of it, casting it to a numeric, and then we are labeling this resulting column as average processing duration, like what the question asked. Then we have from machine logs M1, and so what we're doing here is we are treating the logs table as the starts, and so we're aliasing it here as M1, as we can see in the select statement. Then we are saying join machine logs M2, and again here we're bringing in a second copy of the table for that completes timestamp, and again we are aliasing it here as M2. We are then saying on M1 machine ID equals M2 machine ID, and so here we are matching rows for the same machine. So again, here we're using a join. If you want to go deeper on that, there's a link to the video in the description. And then we say and M1 process ID equals M2 process ID. And so they have to be the same individual process. And M1.event type equals begin. So here the left row has to be tagged as begin. And we also have and M2.event type equals complete. So that right row has to be tagged as complete. And then finally, we have group by M1.machine ID, where we're computing the average duration separately for each machine. So in short, for every machine, we compare each begin log to its matching complete log and average those time gaps and show the results rounded. So let's run the tests and see if they pass. Perfect, the test passed. Let's submit the solution and see if the test suite passes. Perfect, all the tests passed. So hopefully you have a better understanding of how this question worked, as well as a deeper understanding of joins. So if you got any value out of this, please like and subscribe and share it with a friend. It helps the channel out a lot, and I will see you in the next one.